When you've worked your whole life to build something, you believe your children will respect it, protect it, cherish it as part of the family's legacy. That's what I thought too. My name is Richard Hayes. I'm 71 years old, a retired machinist, and for nearly 4 decades I poured sweat and blood into keeping a roof over my family's head. That roof was more than wood and shingles. It was the Hayes family home. It was the place where my wife and I celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas dinners. It was where my daughter Amanda took her first steps, where she brought home trophies from her spelling bees, and later, where she posed for prom pictures on the staircase. That house wasn't just mine. It was our story, our history. But here's the thing about betrayal. It never comes from strangers. It comes from the people you trust the most. Last winter, I had a health scare. My heart gave out one cold January morning and I was rushed to the hospital. Tubes in my arms, machines beeping at my bedside. I thought my only worry was whether I'd live long enough to hold my wife's hand again. What I didn't know was that my daughter and my only child, Bob, was already circling like a vulture. While I lay in that hospital bed, Amanda wasn't praying for my recovery. She wasn't bringing me flowers or sitting at my bedside. No, she was standing in my living room with a realtor, walking through the halls where she once played hide and seek, pointing at the walls, the windows, the kitchen counters, and asking, "How fast can we put this on the market?" She thought I'd never find out. She thought the house would be hers the moment I took my last breath. But what Amanda didn't know was that her little scheme had one fatal flaw. Because while she was plotting to cash in on my life's work, she never bothered to check one simple detail: the deed and the name written on it. When I was a younger man, I never imagined myself wealthy. I wasn't the kind of man who played the stock market or bought fancy cars. I was a machinist, plain and simple. I worked in a factory where the air always smelled of oil and hot steel, where the sound of grinding metal was so constant it became like a second heartbeat. It was hard, honest work. The kind of job that left your clothes soaked in sweat by lunchtime and your hands covered in calluses. But I never complained, because every hour I worked was an hour I could turn into something better for my family. I married Linda when I was 25. She was a school teacher, gentle but firm, with the kind of smile that could calm storms. Together we scraped every penny to buy the house on Maplewood Street. It wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, a small porch, a narrow backyard, but it was ours. The first night we moved in, Linda cooked spaghetti on that old gas stove and we sat on the floor eating out of mismatched bowls. I remember her saying, "Richard, this house will be the heart of our family." And she was right. Then came Amanda, our only child. I'll never forget the way Linda cried the first time Amanda slept in her crib. Her tiny fists curled like she was ready to fight the world. That house became Amanda's kingdom. She grew up running barefoot across the kitchen tiles, her giggles echoing down the hallway. She scratched her name into the wood of the banister when she was 7, and though Linda scolded her at the time, I never sanded it down. I wanted her mark there. Every year, I worked overtime to make sure Amanda never went without. Piano lessons, summer camps, college tuition. I told myself, "Richard, one day when you're old, she'll remember all this. She'll take care of you, just like you took care of her." And for a long time, I believed that. Even when Linda passed away 5 years ago, Amanda promised me I wasn't alone. I remember standing at the cemetery, rain dripping off my hat, my heart breaking as they lowered Linda into the ground. Amanda held my arm tight and whispered, "I'll always look after you. Dad, don't you worry." But promises are easy when life is good. It's when life gets hard that you see people's true faces. And Amanda's true face was nothing like the daughter I thought I'd raised. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. Amanda was always bright, sharp, and ambitious, qualities I was proud of. But somewhere along the way, that ambition turned into something sharper, something selfish. When she was in college, she'd come home on weekends and roll her eyes at the old house. "Dad, why don't you sell this place and move into one of those modern condos downtown? You'd make a fortune, and you wouldn't have to worry about mowing the lawn or fixing the roof." I'd laugh it off, telling her this wasn't just a house. It was where her mother and I built our life. But her eyes always drifted to the walls, to the land, to the value, not the memories. Even after she graduated, the signs kept coming. She borrowed money more than once, always promising to pay it back, but the promises faded like smoke. She started showing up with expensive handbags, new phones, and trips abroad. Yet when I asked if she'd found steady work, she'd changed the subject. On Linda's last birthday before she passed, Amanda forgot to visit. When I called to remind her, she sighed and said, "Dad, I'm busy. You and Mom don't need me hovering around all the time." Linda never said a word about it, but that night she sat on the porch staring at the stars, her eyes wet with quiet disappointment. After Linda's funeral, Amanda became more distant. She still called, but the conversations felt hollow. She'd ask if I was okay, but before long she'd shift to, "By the way, how's the house holding up? Have you thought about downsizing? I know a realtor who could get you a good price." I always brushed it off, telling myself it was just concern. But deep down, a small voice whispered that maybe it wasn't love she was worried about. It was property. I ignored that voice because a father doesn't want to believe his daughter could look at him and see dollar signs instead of memories, but that voice was right, and it would roar to life the day I ended up in that hospital bed. It happened on a freezing January morning. I remember because the ground outside was slick with ice, and I'd been shoveling the driveway so the mailman wouldn't slip. One wrong step, one sharp pain across my chest, and the world went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed with wires strapped to me, the steady beep of a heart monitor filling the silence. A nurse leaned over and said gently, "Mr. Hayes, you've had a heart attack. You're lucky the neighbor found you when he did." Lucky? That word rattled in my ears. I thought for sure Amanda would come rushing in, eyes swollen with worry, clutching my hand like her mother once did. But the first day passed. Then the second. No Amanda. No phone call. Nothing. On the third day, I finally called her myself. She answered, her voice casual, almost annoyed. "Dad, you're in the hospital? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I thought the doctors might have called you," I said weakly. She sighed. "Well, I'm busy with work, but I'll try to stop by this weekend, okay?" Weekend. As if my heart could schedule its failures around her calendar. I lay there, staring at the white ceiling, trying to convince myself she was just overwhelmed. That maybe she was scared or didn't know how to handle it, but the truth gnawed at me. And then came the neighbor, Mrs. Parker, visiting me with flowers. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Richard, I saw Amanda at your house yesterday. She wasn't alone. She had a man with her, looked like a realtor. They were walking through the place, pointing at things. At first I thought I'd misheard. My chest tightened worse than it had the day of my heart attack. "Are you sure?" I whispered. Mrs. Parker nodded solemnly. "I know a realtor when I see one." He had a clipboard and was taking notes. Amanda said she was just exploring options. But Richard, she was acting like she owned the place. I thanked her politely, but my hands were trembling when she left. Amanda hadn't even bothered to check on me. But she had time to walk through the house with a stranger, circling like a buyer at an open house. That was the first time I felt it. Sharp and undeniable, suspicion hardening into certainty. Something was terribly wrong, and if I didn't act fast, I wasn't just going to lose my health, I was going to lose everything Linda and I had built. That night in the hospital, I couldn't sleep. The machines hummed. The hallways echoed with distant footsteps, but all I could hear was Mrs. Parker's voice in my head. She had a realtor with her. I told myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe Amanda was just curious. Maybe she was worried about me living alone in such a big house and thought selling could be practical. "She's your daughter, Richard," I whispered to myself in the dark. She wouldn't betray you. Not Amanda. The next morning, she finally showed up. No flowers, no warm hug, just her phone in one hand and a coffee in the other. She barely looked at the IVs in my arms before launching into a rehearsed smile. "Hey, Dad, you look better than I expected." I tried to smile back. "I heard you stopped by the house." She froze for half a second, then laughed. Too quick, too light. "Oh, that? Yeah, I just thought, maybe if you needed money for medical bills, we could look at options. You know, sell the place, move you somewhere smaller. It's just practical, Dad." I stared at her, searching her eyes for sincerity. All I saw was calculation. "Amanda," I said softly, "that house is all I have left of your mother. Every corner, every wall, it's filled with her." She glanced down at her coffee cup, her jaw tight. "Memories don't pay hospital bills, Dad. You need to think realistically. Her words sliced deeper than any scalpel ever could, but still, I made excuses for her. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe seeing me like this scared her. Fathers are good at lying to themselves when it comes to their children. I told myself she loved me, that she wasn't the kind of person to put money above family. But in the pit of my stomach, I already knew the daughter I'd raised wasn't standing in that room anymore. Someone else was. 2 days later, a nurse wheeled in my breakfast tray, and along with it, a stack of unopened mail my neighbor had dropped off. Most of it was the usual junk: credit card offers, coupons, an electric bill. But then I saw it. A thick envelope, crisp, with the logo of a real estate agency printed across the top. My pulse quickened as I tore it open. Inside was a glossy brochure, photos of my house, the living room where Linda and I had danced on our anniversary, the porch where Amanda once carved her pumpkin at Halloween, the kitchen where we burned our first Thanksgiving turkey together. Every room photographed, staged, lit up as if it were all ready for sale. At the bottom, bold letters read, "Estimated market value $485,000. Seller, Amanda Hayes. Seller, Amanda Hayes, not Richard Hayes." The blood drained from my face. I could barely breathe as I flipped through page after page of my own home being paraded around like merchandise. I pressed the call button for the nurse, my hands shaking. Can you please call my daughter?" When Amanda arrived later that day, she strolled in, phone in hand as usual. I didn't even let her sit down. "Amanda," I said firmly, holding up the brochure. "What is this?" Her eyes widened, just for a moment. Then she plastered on that same fake smile. "Oh, Dad, don't be so dramatic. It's just an appraisal. To see what the house is worth. No harm in that, right?" "It says seller Amanda Hayes." My voice cracked. "Since when are you the seller?" Her mask slipped then. The smile faded, replaced by something colder, harder. "Dad, let's be honest. You're not getting any younger. You almost died last week. Someone has to take charge of things. The house should already be in my name. It's only fair." Fair. That word rang in my ears like a slap. I wanted to argue, to shout, to tell her she was wrong, but the tubes in my arms reminded me how weak I was. She leaned in closer, her voice low and sharp. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll make sure you're comfortable. But the house? It's as good as mine." She kissed my forehead like it was some kind of favor and walked out, heels clicking against the tile, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized Amanda wasn't just testing the waters anymore. She was already sailing the ship, and she thought I was too weak to stop her. But she had no idea who she was underestimating. After Amanda left that day, I sat in that stiff hospital bed, the brochure still trembling in my hands. My heart monitor beeped louder, faster, like it could sense the storm building inside me. For days I had told myself excuses, that Amanda was just confused, that maybe she cared just in her own way. But no more. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't stress. This was greed, plain and cold. I stared at the ceiling and thought of Linda. My Linda, who gave her whole life to that house, to me, to Amanda. If she could see our daughter now, if she knew Amanda was circling like a vulture before I was even buried, her heart would have broken all over again, and that's when the anger hardened into resolve. Amanda thought I was weak. She thought I was dying, defenseless, with no fight left in me. But what she didn't know was that I had already prepared for this years ago. After Linda passed, I'd had a long conversation with our old friend, Henry Wallace, who happened to be one of the most respected attorneys in town. Henry had warned me, "Richard, when people smell money, even family can turn. Protect yourself." Back then, I didn't want to believe him. But something in me had listened. And so quietly, without telling Amanda, I'd made changes. Legal changes. The deed of the house had been transferred into a trust, not under Amanda's name, not even under mine alone. The trust had one key rule. It could not be sold, mortgaged, or transferred without my explicit approval. Amanda could walk 100 realtors through that house. She could print 1,000 brochures with her name on them. But without my signature, it was nothing but paper. The thought brought a grim smile to my face for the first time in weeks. But I wasn't satisfied with just blocking her. No, she needed to learn. She needed to feel what betrayal felt like, to taste the consequences of her own greed. So as I sat there in that hospital bed, I made a quiet promise to myself. The next time Amanda tried to play her little game, I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't yell. I'd let her think she'd won. And then, when the time was right, I'd pull the rug out from under her so hard, she'd never see it coming. By the time I was discharged from the hospital, Amanda was already 3 steps ahead, or at least, she thought she was. She drove me home, barely speaking during the ride. I noticed she didn't even ask if I felt strong enough to walk up the porch steps. Her eyes stayed glued to her phone, fingers tapping furiously. When we pulled up to the house, I froze. There was a fresh for sale sign stuck in the front yard. My house, my life, Linda's memories, all reduced to a wooden board with bold red letters. Amanda, I rasped, my voice low. What is this doing here? She didn't flinch. Didn't even look embarrassed. Dad, it's time. You can't live here alone anymore. You need a nursing facility. Professional care. I've already spoken with a realtor and we've got interest from buyers. You'll thank me one day, thank her. As if ripping my life apart was a favor. Inside the house, it was worse. Boxes already lined the walls. Amanda had started packing things. Linda's china, the family albums, even the quilt Linda's mother had stitched by hand. I reached for one of the boxes, my hands trembling. These aren't yours to touch, I whispered. Amanda set her jaw. Dad, stop being so sentimental. You almost died. It's time for me to take control. This house is worth nearly $500,000. We can use that money for your care. And yes, for me to finally build a future for myself. That's how this works. That's how this works. The words made my blood run cold. I wanted to scream. To throw that for sale sign into the street. But instead I just nodded, keeping my face carefully blank. Because now the game had changed. Amanda thought she'd cornered me. That I was helpless. That she was the clever one pulling all the strings. But in truth, she was tying her own noose and I was going to let her tighten it. Inch by inch, because if Amanda wanted to play this game, I was ready. But she was playing checkers. And I had already set up the chessboard. A week later, Amanda strutted into the house with that smug smile she wore like armor. Good news, Dad, she chirped, dropping a stack of papers onto the kitchen table. We've got an offer, cash, closing in 30 days. You'll be comfortably settled in a care home before spring. I stayed quiet, sipping my tea, watching her like a hawk. She mistook my silence for surrender. All you need to do, she continued, sliding a pen across the table, is sign these documents. Don't worry about the details, and I've handled everything. Handled everything. That's what she thought before I could even respond. The phone rang. Amanda huffed, clearly annoyed, but I motioned for her to hand it to me. Mr. Hayes? Came a familiar voice. It's Henry Wallace. Amanda rolled her eyes, muttering, Why is he calling now? But my heart steadied. Henry wasn't just a lawyer. He was an old friend. One who knew the truth. Richard, Henry said firmly, loud enough that Amanda could hear. I wanted to remind you, under the terms of the trust, your property cannot be listed or sold without your explicit written consent. No signature, no sale. And just so you're aware, someone has already attempted to push through paperwork without your name attached. Amanda's face went pale. She reached for the phone, but I turned away, gripping it tighter. Thank you, Henry, I said, letting a small smile creep into my voice. That's very good to know. Henry paused, then added, I'd also advise you, Richard, if anyone continues to pressure you, let me know immediately. We can take stronger action. I hung up slowly, turning back to Amanda. Her lips were pressed thin, her knuckles white around the pen she had shoved toward me. What trust? She demanded, her voice shaking now. I shrugged, the kind that keeps scavengers from picking apart a man's home before he's even in the ground. Her eyes burned with fury, but I just sipped my tea, calm as stone, because at that moment, the tables had turned. Amanda had thought she held all the cards, but with one phone call, she finally realized she was playing a game she couldn't win. If Amanda had any sense, she would have walked away after Henry's call, but greed doesn't let go that easily. It digs its claws in deeper. The very next morning, I found her pacing the kitchen, phone glued to her ear. She didn't even notice me at first. No, listen, she snapped. There has to be a way around it. My dad's old, his mind isn't what it used to be. We can argue he's incompetent, right? That would give me control of the trust. Her words cut through me like a blade. Incompetent. That was her new angle. When she finally hung up, she forced a smile. "Morning, Dad. How'd you sleep?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. That afternoon, she brought over a stack of medical forms. "Just routine, Dad," she said sweetly. "The care facility needs some paperwork filled out before they'll take you in. It'll make things easier." But when I looked closer, buried under the harmless-looking documents was a petition for guardianship. If I signed it, Amanda would gain control of not just the house, but my bank accounts, my pension, everything. I set the papers down slowly, meeting her gaze. "Amanda, do you even hear yourself? You're treating me like I'm already dead." Her smile wavered, then hardened. "Dad, you nearly died once already. I'm just making sure you're taken care of. You should be grateful I'm handling all this." Grateful. That word burned hotter than fire, but instead of exploding, I nodded, calm. "You're right, Amanda. I should be more trusting." Her eyes lit up, believing she was winning again, but inside, I was already planning my next move, because if Amanda wanted to play dirty, then so be it. She was about to learn that her father wasn't the frail old man she thought he was, and when the lesson came, it would leave a mark she'd never forget. Amanda thought she was clever, slipping guardianship papers in between hospital forms, but what she didn't know was that I had already started moving my pieces into place. That night, when she left for the evening, I called Henry Wallace. His voice was calm, steady, the kind of voice you want on your side in a storm. "Henry," I said, lowering my voice as if Amanda might still be listening. "My daughter is trying to declare me incompetent." There was a long silence, then Henry exhaled. I was afraid she'd go that route. "Don't worry, Richard. We'll stop this before it goes any further, but I'll need you to trust me." And I did. Over the next few weeks, Henry helped me gather everything I needed. Medical records proving I was still sound of mind. Signed statements from my neighbors, Mrs. Parker, the one who'd caught Amanda with the realtor, and even old Mr. Thompson down the street, who swore I still fixed my own lawnmower last summer. But Henry suggested something else, something more tactical. "If Amanda is as reckless as you say," he told me, "she'll slip up again. And when she does, we'll be ready to catch her in her own web. But you'll need to play along, play along." Those words stayed with me. So the next time Amanda came around, waving more papers and insisting I sign, I didn't fight her. I acted slower, weaker. I let her believe I was confused. I even pretended to forget things, nodding as though I trusted her. Her eyes glittered with triumph, never realizing I was feeding her rope she was tightening around her own neck. Meanwhile, Henry arranged something behind the scenes, a private investigator, someone who would track Amanda's meetings with the realtor, her phone calls with buyers, even her attempts to pressure me into signing away my rights. Amanda thought she was building her future brick by brick, but what she didn't know was that every brick she laid was evidence. And one day soon, those bricks were going to form a wall that would close in on her, because I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was preparing to strike back. Amanda's visits became more frequent after that. Not out of love, but out of hunger. She circled me like a shark that smelled blood in the water. One evening, she showed up with a stranger, a man in a tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase. His handshake was firm, his smile just a little too polished. "Dad," Amanda said sweetly, "this is Mr. Clark, a financial advisor. He's going to help us transition things, transition. Another word for take everything." Mr. Clark slid a folder across the table, his tone professional. "Mr. Hayes, Amanda tells me you're ready to start planning for long-term care. These documents will simplify matters. Essentially, Amanda would be your legal representative, able to make financial decisions on your behalf. It's really the most practical step at this stage." I flipped through the papers slowly. Every line was another chain, another way to strip me of the life I'd built. Amanda leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Dad, this is for your own good. Just sign where it says, don't worry about the details." I looked at her, really looked. This wasn't the little girl who once begged me to push her on the swing until the stars came out. This wasn't the teenager who cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak. This was someone else, someone who saw me as an obstacle, not a father. I set the pen down, my hand trembling slightly. "I'll think about it," Amanda's smile faltered. She didn't like hesitation. She wanted control now. And that's when she crossed the line. The very next day, I got a call from the care facility she'd been raving about. "Mr. Hayes," the manager said carefully, "your daughter came by today. She was insistent that we prepare a room for you. She even brought preliminary payment to secure your spot. But she didn't provide your signature. We told her we couldn't process anything without it." She wasn't happy. My blood boiled. She was already trying to move me into a home, against my will, just so she could sell the house. Faster, that was it. Amanda had gone from scheming to outright steamrolling, and she thought no one was watching, but Henry and I were watching, very closely. And with every desperate move she made, Amanda wasn't just tightening the noose anymore. She was stepping right into the trap we'd set. That phone call from the care facility was the final straw. For days, I had let Amanda run her game. I'd let her bring in realtors, push papers under my nose, even parade financial advisors into my home. All while I stayed quiet, watching, waiting. But now she had tried to shove me into a nursing home like an unwanted piece of furniture. And worse, she'd already put money down like my future could be bought and sold with a down payment. I called Henry that evening. My voice was steadier than it had been in weeks. "Henry," I said, "it's time." He didn't hesitate. "I'll have the investigator bring everything we've gathered." "And Richard, when she shows up again, don't hold back. Let her dig her own grave in front of us." The plan was simple. Amanda thought she was closing in on victory, so we'd let her think that. We'd invite her to the table, papers ready, and when she believed she finally had me cornered, Henry would be there, waiting. The next few days were the hardest. I had to keep playing weak. When Amanda stopped by, I acted tired, confused. I let her chatter on about the buyers who were so eager to close the deal, about the care facility that had the perfect room waiting for me. Every word out of her mouth was another nail in her own coffin. Meanwhile, Henry prepared the documents. Not the ones Amanda thought she'd get me to sign, but ironclad legal papers reaffirming the trust, with a clause that would remove Amanda from any future claim to my estate should she continue to act against my interests. And the private investigator? He had done his job well. Phone records, emails, photos of Amanda walking through the house with buyers, recordings of her telling neighbors I'd be out of the way soon. Evidence stacked so high it could bury her 10 times over. All that was left was timing. Amanda wanted power. She wanted money. She wanted the house, so I was going to give her an audience, but instead of watching me crumble, she was going to watch everything she schemed for collapse right under her feet. For the first time in months, I slept soundly that night, because I knew the storm was finally about to break. Amanda arrived 2 days later, strutting into the house like she already owned it. She wore a sharp blazer, her hair pulled back tight, a leather folder clutched under her arm. "Dad," she said sweetly, almost too sweetly, "today's the big day. I've got everything ready. Once you sign these, the house will be sold in less than a month. You'll be comfortable in your new place, and I'll take care of everything else. It's the best solution for both of us." She laid the papers out across the kitchen table like a dealer spreading cards in a rigged game. I glanced at the stack, then at the clock. Right on cue, there was a knock at the door. Amanda frowned. "Who's that?" Before I could answer, Henry stepped inside, carrying a briefcase. He looked every bit the seasoned lawyer he was, calm, polished, with a quiet authority that made Amanda's smile falter. "Amanda," Henry said with a nod. "I hear you've been busy. Mind if I sit in?" Her eyes darted nervously between us. "I don't see why that's necessary. This is just a family matter," Henry chuckled softly. "On the contrary, when legal documents are being pushed in front of my client without his consent, it becomes very much my matter." Amanda's face flushed. "Your client? He's my father, and I've been his attorney for over 30 years, Henry replied smoothly. "So why don't we all take a look at what you've brought, Amanda tried to shuffle the papers back into her folder, but Henry was faster. He slid them across the table, flipping through with a practiced hand. His brow arched. "Guardianship petition? Financial transfer documents? Power of attorney? My. Quite the collection." Amanda's voice rose shrill now. "It's for his own good. He's old, he's sick, he can't manage this house anymore." That's when I spoke, my voice steady as stone. "Amanda, I'm not incompetent. I'm not helpless. And I'm certainly not giving you the right to strip away everything your mother and I built." She opened her mouth, but Henry raised a hand, pulling out another folder. Our folder. "Mr. Hayes anticipated this," he said. "Which is why every move you've made has been documented. Every realtor meeting. Every attempt to sell what doesn't belong to you. Every time you told others he'd be out of the way soon." Amanda's eyes widened, the color draining from her face. Henry leaned in, his tone sharper now. "You've crossed into criminal territory, Amanda. Fraud, coercion, attempted exploitation of an elder. If we wanted, we could have you in handcuffs by tonight." The room went dead silent. Amanda's hands shook as she tried to form words. "Dad, you wouldn't." I looked her straight in the eye. For the first time in my life, I didn't see my little girl. I saw a stranger. "I gave you everything," I said quietly. "And this is how you repay me? By circling like a vulture before I'm even gone?" Her lips trembled. I just wanted— You wanted money," I cut her off. "Not family, not love. Just money." Her face crumpled, but Henry wasn't finished. He slid another document across the table, the revised trust papers. "From this day forward," he said, "Amanda Hayes is officially removed from any future inheritance." "Effective immediately," Amanda gasped, covering her mouth. "No, you can't, Dad, please. Don't do this to me." But it was already done, and for the first time in a long while I felt powerful again. Amanda collapsed into the kitchen chair, her face pale, her hands trembling. For once, she had no slick excuses, no clever words, just silence. Henry closed his briefcase, his work done. "I'll file the updated trust paperwork with the court first thing tomorrow. From this moment on, Amanda has no legal claim to the house, the estate, or your pension. Richard, you're fully protected." Amanda's eyes darted to me, wet with desperation. "Dad, please. You can't mean this. I'm your daughter. Your only family. Don't shut me out like this." Her words cut, because a part of me wanted to believe them. A part of me still remembered the little girl with scraped knees who used to fall asleep on my chest. But that part had been buried under months of lies, schemes, and betrayal. I stood slowly, my body still fragile, but my spirit stronger than it had been in years. I walked to the window, looking out at the house Linda and I had built together. The porch swing she loved, the rose bushes she planted, the home Amanda had tried to steal. "Amanda," I said softly, turning back to her. "Family isn't about blood. It's about love, loyalty, respect. And you've shown me none of those things," she sobbed, covering her face with her hands. But I didn't move toward her. Not this time. "You tried to put me in a nursing home for my pension. You tried to sell this house before I was even gone. You wanted comfort for yourself while leaving me with nothing. That's not love. That's betrayal." Her sobs filled the silence, but I felt lighter, stronger. For the first time since Linda died, I felt like I was standing up not just for myself, but for her memory too. Henry gave me a small nod and slipped out the door, leaving us alone. I picked up the discarded papers Amanda had shoved at me earlier, the guardianship petition, the financial transfer. I tore them in half, the sound echoing in the quiet kitchen, and dropped them in the trash. Amanda lifted her head, her eyes swollen. "So that's it. You're cutting me off? Forever?" I took a deep breath. "That's up to you. You can live your life chasing money, or you can remember what it means to be a daughter. But until then, Amanda, you'll have to live with the choices you've made." Her face crumpled again, but I turned away, walking toward the stairs. My legs were weak, but my heart felt stronger than it had in years. That night, as I sat on the porch with a blanket over my shoulders, I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Linda, it's done. She won't take our home. She won't erase what we built." And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace, because the house still stood. The memories were still mine, and Amanda had learned that betrayal has consequences, even when it comes from your own blood.